We've talked about a lot of the different policies that your family is going to want to have as you transition your business or as you manage the family wealth going forward for the generations. Another very important one is how you're going to handle dividends, family distributions like that, how family members are going to get money out of the family business and out of the family wealth. And what if a family business owner wants out completely? How are they going to get kind of bought out? And why this is so important is because as you go forward in the generations, not every family member who's going to be benefiting from the business is going to be working inside of it. And that's kind of really where these disputes kind of go, because we kind of have two different camps, and the people inside the business that are getting salaries and things are definitely benefiting from getting money out of it. But the people outside of it really don't see money unless there's a distribution or there's a dividend, and life, kind of happens. And the flip side of that too is that the business a lot of times is going to need to keep a lot of cash inside of it, especially when they're doing lots of growth. So knowing how this is going to happen and what kind of rules by which we're going to get the money out of it really sets a level playing field, sets everybody's expectations, and kind of can minimize conflicts, because life will happen. Even though someone's out there got a different job, working for a different company and doing well, that doesn't mean they're not going to want to have a big purchase like a house. That doesn't mean that life's not going to happen to them, and maybe a investment or something goes poorly and they need to go back and get a bit of cash so that they can kind of stabilize things and go forward. We want family members to go forward if they're not in the business and start their own businesses and have their own lives and have their own fortunes. A lot of times maybe they'll put that back into the family pot, maybe they won't, but we want the success. The whole point of the family business, the family wealth, is to help the family prosper, help the family go forward. And just because someone's talents aren't being used inside our business doesn't mean we shouldn't encourage that. On the flip side of that too, the business itself, that's kind of the golden goose. That wealth that's there, we don't really want to endanger that principle and things like that. It's providing jobs for the family. It's providing jobs for key employees. It's our customers. That's kind of how the family built its legacy. And the people inside the business kind of know probably how it's best used inside the business and what the money and what the business itself can stand and take. And it's only fair and right that they be able to get paid a salary, sometimes benefits, and sometimes bonuses. But that can kind of create some tension because the people who aren't inside the business aren't really getting that as much. People working inside are probably going to get more just because of that salary aspect. So how do we balance out these equations? Well, we need to have fairly easy dividend policies. Even if you're going to withhold a lot of the capital back for the business, you probably need to have at least some come out every year, okay? Some come out so people see that tangible benefit, they see why it's important, and they see the business is doing well. If the business isn't and you can't, that's fine, but that needs to be made perfectly clear. But you need to have a generous policy that if we can afford to have money come out, that probably it should, and that you should make plans for how that money is going to be spent in the future. The other part is redemptions. Every now and then, a family member or a branch of the family might want completely out of the business. That might not be something that we ever intended to happen. We may put it in holding companies and trusts to kind of prevent that from happening, but we can't stop it from happening. And even if it's getting out of a trust, if someone really wants to get out, it's probably good to let them out. And you should probably plan for that in your documents, in your family governance. How are we going to pay them out? How are they going to get out of the trust? What are we going to do with that kind of liquidity? If they leave, can they come back? How do you think it's going to happen? Because there's all kinds of reasons in life why this might happen. And there's all kinds of reasons why people might leave, regret it, and want to come back to the family. Are we going to allow that? These kinds of policies really need to be set in stone, and we need to talk about and be a part of our family governance. Now, if it's not a part of those regular dividends that everyone gets, and if someone doesn't want completely out, but say they need something because maybe there's a big medical bill, maybe they have a big investment, something like that. The family can decide to use money from one business and invest in the other, and then it could be a family venture. The family can decide to loan money out to that person, have that kind of go. But these aren't things you want to decide the first time someone asks, okay? You want to have this understanding of what's going to be allowed and what's not from the beginning. And what are the procedures for asking about those things? What criteria? Who makes the decision? How is this going to go? What's the family's long-term goals? These need to be done from the beginning. It'll keep those fights from happening. It'll keep someone from pulling away. Because I'm telling you, outside of maybe being a beneficiary of a trust, if they're just going to own those shares and they want out, there's a pretty good chance they can have a court force them to let them get out. So you got to plan for that, and if you want to keep everything together, you have to have this policy that's workable to get that money out. Even when they're inside the trust there, if the trustee is holding it back for these other reasons, there could be a conflict of interest there. There could definitely be a way to get in court there, and you're going to have a negotiation. You're probably going to compromise and let some money come out anyway because it's expensive, and who wants to be in court and who wants to deal with the privacy issues? It's much better to be planning for this in the beginning, talking about the ground rules, talking about how it can come out, setting up that policy and procedure so everyone has that expectations. When there's no expectations down for anyone to meet to, that's when people get in their head how they think it should go, how they think it's fair rather than what it is and what we've agreed upon. And if that's always the way how the family's done things, then that's the level of expectations people will have, and people will meet that unless they're really desperate or it doesn't meet their needs. And then the family should come together and talk about those things. So if you want the family to continue to go together, that's the next policy that you should really have is generous dividends, how the family members can redeem, those kinds of things. And what are you going to do when a family member has that need that's more than others, okay? Because it may be in their best interest. But what if it's not in the best interest of the family to have that? How are we going to manage those kinds of things? Those are difficult discussions. We don't wait to happen until they come up. We don't wait to happen until 2 generations down, because that's where we really cause problems. And those kinds of needs need to be a part of our cash flow and our liquidity analysis as we go forward, period, from the first generation to the third to the fourth. They need to be going from the beginning so that we can really meet these challenges. They're difficult discussions. They're difficult decisions. Have the discussions. Make decisions. You don't have to go into every little last detail, but you should set up the basic framework for that. And then you'll probably have a much better time and a much easier time keeping prosperity through the generations and keeping it all together.